Just ahead on This American Land.
Over 4 million visitors are coming to the park each year from all over the world to enjoy the abundant wildlife, bison, mountain goats, and bears.
Yellowstone and other national parks are breathtaking treasures, but the wear and tear of all these admirers has driven maintenance costs sky high.
It's a great place for fishing, see tons of wildlife out here.
A trip to this South Carolina refuge also reveals the secrets of Boneyard Beach.
Below ground, its roots extend as far as 15 and 20 feet.
And for some farmers, there's magic below the soil. Perennial grain crops leave a lighter environmental footprint, and they can be transformed into some tasty new treats. So hang on tight, there's something brand new brewing on This American Land. Funding for this program provided by the Walton Family Foundation, the McKnight Foundation, and the Horner Family Fund.
Hi, and welcome to This American Land. I'm your host, Ed Arnett, and we've got some great stories for you today about the conservation of America's natural resources, our landscapes, waters, wildlife, and the people who are dedicated to conservation across the country. We'll start today in Minnesota, where researchers are developing perennial crops that grow year-round, providing more income for farmers, sequestering carbon, and protecting soils. These new crops have already been selected by food and beverage producers to process new products for consumers. We sent a crew to Minnesota to learn more.
In western Minnesota, as across much of central and southern Minnesota, the landscape gradually goes from black to green to brown, and then the primary tillage turns those fields back to black soil.
We grow crops very intensively for about 4 months of the year, and those are the warm summer months. And then after that, we harvest them, and for the most part, we have nothing on the soil. Soil that does not have living plant roots in it cannot be fully healthy soil.
The challenge farmers face in the Midwest is that we've become very good at producing corn and soybeans. After a few profitable years, we find that the price of those commodities has dropped, and some farmers are losing money on every acre they plant. Now we're actually starting to see people losing their farms, and there's a palpable sense of despair among many farmers.
So what we need to do is to find a way for farmers to grow things during the other 8 months of the year. And this is the whole project that we have going on in the Forever Green Initiative.
The Forever Green Initiative is a program that has been in place for about 25 years and is designed to develop the next generation of agronomic crops. We're now standing in the research fields at the University of Minnesota, where most of the crops that are currently grown in the state of Minnesota have been produced. We have a series of perennial crops that are under development. For instance, hazelnut, silflower, perennial flax, elderberry.
We are trying to change agriculture in a fundamental way to make sure that we have living roots and living crops present on the land all year round. This is the world's first perennial grain crop for the temperate zone. This is called kernza, also known as intermediate wheatgrass, and it produces a grain that's very similar to wheat, and it can be used for many of the same purposes as wheat. It's a small plant above ground. Below ground, its roots extend as far as 15 and 20 feet down into the soil. So it produces a remarkable structure that's able to hold on to very large amounts of rainfall. It's a remarkable plant. And we are working actively with a number of commercial partners to develop a whole line of new food products that are made from kernza.
I'm Gabe Guzmini. I'm the Director of Crop Improvement at PepsiCo, and I'm located on the campus of the University of Minnesota. PepsiCo is interested in the Forever Green program and the crops that's studying because they both help lowering the environmental footprint of agricultural supply chains and they could enable new and interesting products for our consumers in the future. We own Quaker as a cereal brand and we're always looking for new grains. PepsiCo is committed to sustainable agriculture and a big focus around soil health and soil preservation. I think perennials will be a strong contributor to new ways of producing food alongside winter annuals.
My name is Carmen Fernholz, and my wife Sally and I operate about 350 acres of organic diversified crops here near Madison, Minnesota. Like much of the Midwest, the main income revenue for these farmers is corn and soybeans. That's my nephew. This is his soybean field. 90 to 95% of the ground has nothing really growing in it for at least 6 months out of the 12-month year. We're looking at the Kernza field that I planted, and the nice thing about this crop is it's a perennial. It grows back each year. So I, as a farmer, don't have to come back each spring and work the ground and reseed the crop. If we get down close here, this is what the new Kernza looks like. This is baby Kernza, a little over a month old. And you can see how it's already branched out. I'm going to guess that root system is down at least 6 inches or better. The nice thing about this field now is that it'll actually stay green now over the winter. In fact, if there were a foot of snow on this in the winter, you come out here and dig, it would probably still be a little bit green. In fact, the snow protects it so it can keep growing over the winter. And if we really want to get scientific, if something is growing, we've got microbial activity in that soil building fertility even during the winter months. Check out the Kernza crop that we harvested this year. This is the raw seed as it has come from the combine. The really dark brown is the actual Kernza seed. Kernza has several uses already being developed, and one of the first ones is a cereal. Research is showing how it can be used in baking and cooking, things of that nature.
Kernza flour.
When I first learned about Kernza and the whole idea behind it, this whole new paradigm of how we could do agriculture in our country, I got really excited. My name is Tracy Singleton, and I am the owner of the Birchwood Cafe in Minneapolis. Our mission here is really to connect people to where their food comes from. Sourcing as much of our ingredients as possible from local farmers using organic and sustainable and regenerative practices. It fits in with everything that we do here at the Birchwood. We've made waffles with it, we've made pancakes with it, we make the crackers with it, and we have it in a focaccia bread.
All right, ready?
Yep, here we go.
We started with Kernza when Marshall from Birchwood Cafe asked us if we wanted to brew with it. And how many times do brewers get to brew with a new grain? We said absolutely yes, we would.
We are Sandy and Jay Boss-Febo, owner brewers of Bang Brewing.
In St. Paul, Minnesota.
We have a one-room brewery that does everything.
It's a 30,000 bushel rock grain bin.
So it's a visual tie to the farms that make possible what we do.
Yes. Man, I do what I can.
We have people showing up that know that we brew with Kernza, and they look specifically at the menu and ask which beer features the grain. We even have a banner in our brewery that depicts the root structure of Kernza compared to annual wheat to scale, and the visual of that root mass is just incredible.
Working with Kernza has been an honor.
The principles that drive us: smallest footprint, biggest impact. We're focused on working with sustainably farmed and organic ingredients. Perennial grain is such a novelty in the world of beer that it's been awesome.
When it comes to perennial crops in general, we're looking for a win-win all the way through the system, protecting the natural resources for the public and providing new economic opportunities for that supply chain, including rural communities and marketers.
When I look ahead to the next 20, 25 years, I'm hoping that my grandchildren look across this landscape and see all of these green fields in the middle of November. And then in the springtime, as the snow is melting away, see these same green fields out there.
Now we'll go to South Carolina, to a coastline with salt marshes and forests that offer priceless habitat for abundant birds and other wildlife. Urban sprawl from the city of Charleston gets closer every year, and conservationists are relying on the Land and Water Conservation Fund to acquire land and protect it from development.
We're going to Cape Romain National Wildlife Refuge, as you see this orange boundary. Welcome aboard. Watch your head getting on.
This is one of the most amazing places on Earth.
One of the most important bird nesting grounds on the east coast of the United States.
It's a great place for fishing, see tons of wildlife out here, bird watching, outdoor recreation.
We'll be having our adventure in the southwestern end of the refuge today, specifically on Bulls Island.
Cape Romain National Wildlife Refuge is a coastal complex where the land meets the sea. We also have an incredible national forest just west of us, the Francis Marion National Forest.
Cape Romain is just north of Charleston, South Carolina, and it's a remarkable estuarine system where longleaf pine meets the Sound and the ocean.
We have one of the only Class 1 wilderness systems on the East Coast, so we're trying to recognize what we have and to preserve it and make it better amongst the many different development pressures that are saturating our area right now. My name is Eddie White. I'm the founder of Onondaga Green. How's everybody doing out there? Very good.
Cracking in from the fields, we digging down in this cold.
Onondaga Green is an original music showcase. We started about 10 years ago with help from the guys in Hootie and the Blowfish, and we connect the community through original music. Fortunately, there's a group of like-minded people that have protected the environment, that recognize the cultural importance of what we're not displacing, but what we're integrating with. And through a coalition of private, philanthropic, and governmental entities, we've tried to protect this environment. So what we're moving into, we're trying not to displace.
I'm definitely concerned about the growth in the Charleston area, and I think everybody who lives here is. My name is Brooks Gear. I'm a co-owner of Seawee Outpost in Allendale, South Carolina.
Hey, how are you?
Business-wise, it's great. I mean, we're selling more things, but quality of life-wise, it's definitely lessening each day that 30 people move here. It makes enjoying the outdoors a little more difficult because they're shrinking, and then when you actually go to access them, it's a little harder. But we do have these great natural areas around us to frame it and contain it to some degree, and at least it gives us a place that we can go escape from the hustle and bustle of all that development.
What you're seeing here is the Highway 17 corridor, and you've got this mix of ownerships of protected lands and unprotected lands. You see the stars and the yellow dots indicating where LWCF money was used to purchase those tracts of land that keep kind of some of the development at bay.
What would happen if there wasn't LWCF funding for some of these projects?
It's a critical piece of the funding situation. If it went away, we wouldn't be able to leverage those dollars at the state and local level. You could easily see something like one of these white tracts turning into a neighborhood with 3,000 homes in it.
Good morning.
A lot of times people think of land protection as simply protecting something that's not for anybody to use. And that's certainly not what land and water conservation is about. I mean, this serves as an amazing place for us to bring thousands of children every year. I'm Grace Gasper, and I'm Executive Director of Friends of Coastal South Carolina.
The phosphate looks like it's about 0.0.
So we have a science, learning, and environmental stewardship program called Earth Stewards. It's a way children can bring their science lessons outdoors. And we think that's such an important part of our conservation mission because we have to have that next generation, valuing these places and making the decisions to continue to protect them.
So gang, welcome to the Boneyard Beach. Over a long span of time, what was once maritime forest becomes seashore. And it's quite a landscape to be part of, but it certainly brings to mind the idea of rising water levels. I think of it less as a graveyard and more of a sculpture garden. You know, it's sort of a museum. So they finished the fort walls with these trees to have these areas and to steward them and to offer teachable moments about our own history. Why is the sable palmetto tree on the South Carolina state flag? Well, let's go to the beach and talk about it. With rising water levels and changing ecosystems and massive habitat changes, national wildlife refuges are going to need to have the funds to extend their borders inland.
I think Bull Island is a good example of conservation success, where you have a large amount of protected land, but there are threats even here.
There are tremendous threats here, but there are tremendous resources that are worth protecting. And the Land and Water Conservation can do it for these communities in a rural area like here in Awendaw, South Carolina.
So the sable palmetto tree can take an awful lot of wind, the way they bend and flex. And one of their the ways they do business is they hold hands underground. And when they grow together like that, they are invested in a similar mission statement. They hold each other up. Our Friends Group for the National Wildlife Refuge, the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Department of the Interior, the Nature Conservancy. Any one of them standing alone doesn't really have a chance to make a difference, but them standing together and holding hands like this, that's a business plan that stands a chance to work. We could do it. Together we could do it.
Now we'll take a tour of 3 national parks to look at a serious problem affecting almost all parks in the country: the mounting backlog of repairs and maintenance that's long overdue because Congress hasn't authorized the money needed to pay for it, and the parks are suffering.
I've heard about Yellowstone my whole life. I can't believe we're actually here in person. This is so magical.
We saw the old geyser and falls and all those things. It's breathtaking.
You can look at all the photography in the world, but it's not the same as touching your foot on the ground.
Over 4 million visitors are coming to the park each year from all corners of the nation and all over the world to enjoy the abundant wildlife, bison, mountain goats, and bears roaming around the park. I'm Marcia Argist. I'm with the Pew Charitable Trust, where I direct the Restore America's Parks campaign. The public doesn't realize, but this infrastructure needs to be maintained. And also, it has almost 800 employees during the high season.
Well, have you been enjoying the trip so far?
Sure.
These employees need housing, and that housing is not in a great state.
We have about 70 single-wide mobile homes in the park that we use for seasonal housing. Some of those trailers are 40 years old.
My name is Steve Yobst. I retired from the National Park Service a little over 2 years ago as Deputy Superintendent at Yellowstone National Park.
With a harsh environment in a place like Yellowstone, it deteriorates. You have flat roofs that sustain a snow load that cause leaking. The interiors, the flooring is coming up. The walls is not what I would consider code construction. There are other structures in Yellowstone that are used for employee housing as well. Many of those structures were built before 1900. This is America's natural and cultural heritage, and it needs to be maintained and kept in a good condition. And it's timely to recognize that places like Yellowstone are in need of a boost in funding and attention. This deferred maintenance backlog, it's real.
System-wide, across our National Park Service, there is a backlog of repairs that now totals nearly $12 billion. And for decades, our park facilities have been underfunded. The needs have stacked up, and the park now is challenged to keep up with the pace of repairs.
Great Smoky Mountains National Park is within a day's drive for half of the U.S. population. My name's Alan Summerisky. I'm the Chief of Facility Management at Great Smoky Mountains National Park. Our visitation is greater than 11 million visitors a year. Yeah, you can see this is a common occurrence. You know, the daily traffic on this road, I think this time of year is probably around 3,500 cars a day. There's a direct correlation between use and deterioration. You can see that the pavement is under stress here by looking at what we would call alligator cracking. In the last 2 years, we've seen significant deterioration and delamination of the road surface. This top 1.5 inches is at the end of its life cycle. When vehicles drive off the road, they start to break the pavement edge. If the edge is breaking off, the pavement lane is getting narrower. You'll see a lot of cracking, what we call longitudinal cracking. You know, these are signs that show extreme deferred maintenance.
We have almost $190 million of deferred maintenance just on our roadways alone. That accounts for about 80% of our total. Most of our visitors come here by car. They're hoping to have a park-like experience, and part of that is that journey they take along our scenic roadways. It makes sense that that's where our needs are.
The Smokies are incredibly inspiring for so many reasons. It's just a park that gets under your skin. I think it's just the ancient mountains. They're the oldest mountains in the world. So every trail tells an amazing either human story or natural history story. My name is Vesna Plakanis. I'm co-owner of a guide service called A Walk in the Woods. So our region is actually a temperate rainforest. People who work for me, they're doing it because they love this area. So if it's something that's not being taken care of, you know, it impacts us personally as well as economically. The Smokies are a billion-dollar industry. And we would not be here. Gatlinburg, Pigeon Forge certainly wouldn't exist if there was not this national park. And so if you're not taking care of this, you're basically, you know, choking out all of these gateway communities.
We pride ourselves in Cave City as being the gateway to Mammoth Cave National Park. We have motels, we have restaurants, you know, other attractions that add greatly to the economy. Mammoth Cave National Park is, you know, about everything to this area.
This is the first call for the 945 Grand Avenue tour.
Have a great day.
The park gives people a reason to come here, and when they're here, they go out into other cities that surround the park. It's something not only for visitors, but it's a sense of pride for our citizens here.
It's a 2-hour tour. It's 2 miles long, and we're going to go 310 feet underground.
And it's really important that we maintain it to the best of our ability.
Oh, wow.
We are in Mammoth Cave. This is actually the longest cave in the world. It's over 412 miles of explored passageways. I'm Steve Kovar, and I am the facility manager here at Mammoth Cave National Park.
There you go.
We bring 500,000 people a year into the park. And so we obviously need a sewer because of all the visitors we have here at Mammoth Cave. The problem we have right now is we're developing leaks. About 15 years ago, our scientists were noticing that there were high levels of E. coli, and that's indicative of having a sewer leak. Obviously, you don't want high levels of E. coli in this section of the cave where you're bringing visitors through. I mean, that E. coli could have been in the water that you're running through here, so we started looking for where that leak was. There was a manhole, and the sewer had plugged up, and the water found a way out of the sewer and then found its way down through the ground and gotten here in the cave. This is one of those rivers that flow through Mammoth Cave. Here in the cave, we've got a Kentucky cave shrimp. We've got 2 species of fish. There's one. And crayfish. It's white because there's no sunlight down here. And we need to make sure that we can protect those things, and somebody 50 years from now can come down here and those natural resources, those crayfish, still exist then as they do today.
Coming up in the next year or so, we're going to be replacing the sewer lines that are currently running through the park. In addition, we're adding a notification system. So when something were to happen and begin a leak, we're notified instantly on the surface.
Parks often operate like small cities, and they need to be maintained properly. You know, as Congress is talking about a national infrastructure package, they certainly need to incorporate provisions that include the National Park Service. Infrastructure like roads and buildings and water treatment plants. But it's really important that the public makes sure that Congress hears from them.
You know, we need to be able to get here, we need to be able to see it, we need to be able to show our kids this stuff.
Keeping it safe, you know, for everybody, and just sharing this.
Almost everyone would say, let's keep our national parks maintained properly. It's a travesty that the current stewards are not preserving America's best idea.
Now, here's a quick look at stories from our next show.
This grass is really good at taking carbon dioxide out of the air and storing it in plant biomass.
Growing faith in fighting climate change. Farms feeling the heat are now part of the solution.
It's not just a win for farmers, it's a win for the whole world.
Next time on This American Land.
That's all for now, and thanks for joining us. Be sure to listen to our podcast and check us out on social media. We'll see you next time on This American Land.
For more information about this program, visit thisamericanland.org, listen to our podcasts, and like us on Facebook. Funding for this program provided by the Walton Family Foundation, the McKnight Foundation, and the Horner Family Fund.